there's just nothing better than a bit of gloss. I love that sound. Okay, let's start. I don't even know where to begin because there are so many. So I also don't think I'll be able to go in order because I don't know the order anymore. I have a few physical copies here. I am very big on buying and selling books on Vinted because in my library they usually don't have the books that I'm looking for. I am Dutch, but I like to read English novels, and that's pretty difficult. I live in a small town, so they're usually taken or whatever. So Vinted is my go-to. So there are also a few books that I've already sold by now. And like I said, there are a few books that I read on Audible, so I listened to them. So I don't have the physical copies. So maybe we'll start with those. On Audible, I listened to, finally, I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. And I loved it so much. It was very intense. I am not sure if there were any trigger warnings. I'll just tap on this lip gloss in the meantime, by the way, because I like having something to do while I speak. I'm not sure if there were specific trigger warnings mentioned in the book. There probably were, but I didn't get any of those, so I was kind of shocked, honestly. But listening to the audiobook was such an experience, also because I'm new to Audible and I wasn't sure what to expect. And hearing the words coming from her and the way she talks about her relationship with her mother and everything she went through is incredible. It's the way she writes is very very quick. I would say it's very, very much like you're talking to her, which I really appreciate in a book. And I love the way she writes. I think she used humor in the right places, and that really, really adds to the book. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of biographies, etc. But I would really recommend this. Also, if you grew up watching Carley and stuff, it's very, very nice. I am not a big fan of putting celebrities and people in general on pedestals, and I think that these kinds of stories really show to me why everybody goes through things. Everyone has hardship in their lives. You never, never, never know what someone else is going through, and I think this book is the epitome of that. It captures it immaculately. And I wish her so well, so well, so well. I'm glad I got to know her in this way, let's put it like that. So, I'll check on my Goodreads on my laptop here what I rated the books because I don't remember. Let's see. Haley Jean Is Now Your Friend. I love that. Oh my god. Yeah, if you want to follow me on Goodreads, I'll put the link in the description. Okay, but let me see. Yeah, I rated it 5 stars. I usually rate books as they are, so I won't give a 5-star read just for the sake of I had a 5-star read, but like, to me, for a biography, this was 5 stars. Just like Just Kids by Patti Smith, 5 stars for a biography. I wouldn't say that it was my 5-star read, you know what I mean? I hope you know what I mean. Anyway, 5 stars. Then the other book that I read on Audible books and movies, and I've watched a movie, and I've always really liked the story of Peter Pan, and it intrigued me. It was also kind of scary, I guess, just because there was such a world out there, and I don't know, it's very nostalgic. And I only knew the shorter version, and I loved hearing this time about the flight to Neverland. I'm also an adult now, so I'll listen to it in a different way, but the way that Peter Pan is kind of annoying, a little piece of shit, actually, excuse my French, but he's just a little boy, and he doesn't want to grow up, and I feel like, also probably because I was a child, and I was so focused on other things in the story, that this time, that came across to me really well, and even though it's so old, so there are racist influences and not feminist views and etc., etc. I won't get into all that, but I can kind of read through that in regards to how old the story is. I love that they disclaim it at the beginning of the audiobook. They also do that in the movies on Disney Plus, which I appreciate. Anyway, yes, nice. I gave it 4 stars. The last one I listened to on Audible is Breakfast at Tiffany's, and I had seen the movie a while ago, like a few times I've seen it because I love Audrey Hepburn, but I hadn't read the book, and I couldn't find it anywhere, so when I saw it on Audible, I loved it. I love the story. I'm gonna read to you what I wrote about it on Goodreads. It has a spoiler, so skip this if you're unaware. Okay, this pleasantly surprised me. Very witty and well written, which definitely. I could really imagine the scenes beyond what the movie shows. I loved his comparison of his old classmate and Holly while he was looking at her in the library. Also the fact that he snaps back to reality after he has a profound thought. So, he was just comparing his old classmate who was very unpopular. This is from what I remember of it. Don't pin me on it. And he compared her to Holly, who looks very cool and chic and everything. And how they were the same at the core, basically. And he wrote really well in that bit where he went, like, after I had this profound thought, I stopped myself and blah blah blah, and the story continues, and I don't know, something clicked in me when I loved reading that part. Also, Holly is insanely problematic, and the story in regards to her background ties together so well with her behavior. She hid her identity, yet she says she'd rather have cancer than a dishonest heart. Was she dishonest? I believe not. She does these really bold statements, and it's very black and white, and I just love that because he created such a world with their own characters, and they had depth, and I always really like that when an author translates that well. I don't know. I gave it 5 stars because I loved the story. I loved how it was read. Then I also read Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and I loved that book. the spicy scenes and the personal troubles that the main characters are going through. It's always, they're like silly fun, read by the beach, love stories, but also it has like just the right amount of depth for me for a silly little love novel, romance novel. She's not making too light of the situation, but she also doesn't go into it deep enough that you get sad reading the book, you know what I mean? Anyway, love that, gave it 5 stars. Okay, now we're going into the physical copies. I read The Alchemist, and this is a lovely book. I read it at the beginning of the month, February, so it's not that clear in my brain anymore, which is unfortunate. But this book I borrowed from a close friend, and it's by Paolo. Coelho. Is it cool? It can't be Coelho. It can't be Coelho, right? It's Coelho. Anyway, the back says, to realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation. And it's all about the shepherd finding his destiny. It's about omens, it's about having faith, it's about the desert, it's about an alchemist, it's about love, it's about hopes and dreams and believing in those dreams and acting to achieve those dreams and trusting, having faith, and without it being like actually like religious or anything. It's like a fairy tale, but to read it as an adult is lovely. That's how I would say it. Also, this edition has a little map, as you can see. And I loved looking at this throughout the book, which I did. Yeah, I love the people that he meets. I love the way they talk about omens, and I've definitely ignored my fair bit of omens in my time. Yeah, it's a very good book. I'm really glad my friend recommended it to me. I hope she read my book recommendation, which I'm going to get into now. This is the last book that I read this month. It's a reread. And this is my favorite book on the face of the earth. I highly recommend you get this book. If you were to only ever read one book, make it this one. Specifically, if you're into romance, art, culture, England, hip-hop music, poetry, this is the book for you. I'm going to read the back. Two young people meet at a public pub in southeast London. Both are black British. Both won scholarships to private schools where they struggled to belong. Both are now artists. He a photographer, she a dancer, trying to make their mark in a city that by turns celebrates and rejects them. Tenderly, they fall in love. But two people who seem to be destined to be together can still be torn apart by fear and violence. At once an achingly beautiful love story and a potent insight into race and masculinity. Open Water asks what it means to be a person in a world that sees you only as a black body, to be vulnerable when you are only respected for strength, to find safety in love only to lose it, with gorgeous, essential British debut of recent years. So, it touches on black trauma a lot, which I had only read about before in the book Girl, Woman, Other, and it just, the struggles that the author describes in the life of the main character is heartbreaking. And okay, look, I love a good heartbreaking story, but this was heartbreaking in several ways. Throughout the novel, I just kept on wishing for it to get better in a world in which I know that appears to be so much to ask for, and the lack of a feeling of safety throughout his life and her life, and also it's very poetically and rhythmically written. It has a lot of phrases that keep on coming back throughout the novel, which I adored. It gets deeper and deeper, and the sequences, it's so thematic, which I love. Also, like I said, it references hip-hop music a lot, black artists, and there's it's like a full playlist that you can follow while reading this book, and I have this Alexa speaker. I don't want to trigger her. And I would read the book, see the song, ask her to play it, and then continue reading a bit, and it just really, it immersed me in the book. I adore this. It's a true piece of art. It has a lot of nice quotes, so I'll try to read to you the section. You feel her turn beside you. You wonder how long this moment could stretch for, and how much it could contain. You, her, the soft rush of cars speeding in the darkness, the gaze, seeing each other here, her heartbeat near audible before she says, I love you, you know. She has swum out into open water, and it's not long before you join her. You take but a moment before saying, I love you too. Gorgeous book, 5 stars. Then a classic. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I rated it 3 stars. This goes into the story of Esther. Esther is a student. She has an internship in New York, and after that internship is over, she moves back home to her mom. It's about her mental health and her journey, and I would say I'm not doing the best mentally at this moment. I'm having a hard time. I have a burnout and I'm at home. So, reading this made me sad. It made me big sad. So, I found this very confronting to read. And not that I relate to her directly. I could see how people would. But, she has some sinister thoughts, man. There is, however, one part of this which I will forever remember, and that is a piece that's something that Sylvia Plath wrote about Esther comparing her life to a fig tree, and the options of her life are the figs in the tree. So there's the fig where she's a famous swimmer or whatever. I don't know the specifics anymore, but just imagine that your life, there are so many options, and instead of picking a fig, you're just staring at the tree because you don't know which fig you like. But as you're waiting just look at the trigger warnings before you read this novel. Also, in relation to Sylvia Plath and the way that her life ended, I found it very, very confronting to read, knowing about what happened to her. Yeah, okay. I have 3 more books here, and they're all pretty cozy, I would say. So, this one, The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Chbosky. I loved it. I had seen the movie a while ago, and I've always wanted to read the book. And yeah, I had a gift card for my birthday from my parents, and I ordered it, and I loved it. It was very intense. There might be a bunch of cuts from now, but there's someone downstairs unloading a dishwasher. Anyway, some stuff that happens there is really intense, but the overall, it's really good. And it's just a coming-of-age story about this boy called Charlie. And Charlie hangs out with the older kids at school, and his 2 friends that he makes, what are they called again? And Patrick and Sam take him under their wing. And yeah, it's just a beautiful story. I won't get into it too much, but I would recommend. Okay, the final 2 books. I am going to show you them side by side because they have been told to be very similar in story, which they are. Both are romance novels. Both are childhood friends to lovers, second chance romance storylines. They hop back and forth between past and present. They're both about a house somewhere where the girl occasionally goes and the boy lives full time. But I would say the inside of these books are very different from each other. So I'll start with this one, which I read after reading this one. It's called Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. And okay, yeah, I didn't like this book too much. I still had a good time. I was entertained. I was giggling at the pages. I was like, ooh, a little bit hot and bothered. Christina Lauren writes about teenage angst very well. Sexual tension between the 2 main characters, phenomenal. It follows Macy, who lives with her dad. She lost her mom at a young age. They buy a weekend home, and the next door neighbor is, of course, a really hot teenage boy. And they become best friends. They both read a lot. They read in her closet a lot, and they hang out there all the time. And slowly these feelings are starting to develop. It's a very, we are meant to be together, period, kind of story. But then something happens, they lose touch, and what I felt was that this book lacked depth in the characters. It was very sex-driven and like lust-driven. I mean, she talks about his ass in jeans after they haven't seen each other for years and years and years, and I was like, if he is the one for you, you'd probably be thinking a lot of different things, which a nice butt in jeans might be a part of, but it's not the one you write down. It's the love of your life, this is my person feeling that I was missing, like the deeper layers of like, this person sees me, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, like I said, I was still very entertained and I liked the story, but I wouldn't, out of the 2, it's not the one I would recommend. like ever. This was also a reread this month because, like I said, I was sad and I needed a book to cheer me up, and this one always does it. This is about Persephone Fraser, Percy, and her parents. They buy a holiday house by a lake, and there's a family next door where Sam, Charlie, and their mother Sue live, and it's just it's like a back and forth between 12 years ago and now, where they have lost touch and whatever. But these guys, like Sam and Persephone, which they refer to as Percy, they become best friends, and like the real best friends you become when you're 14. It's wholesome. It goes into their friendship beautifully. I would eat this book if I could. Anyway, yeah, it just follows them all the way through college, and then now 12 years later something happens. They start to hang out again, like they're around each other for this specific occasion, and it opens up a lot of hurt that they've both been holding on to for so many years, and it's about miscommunication and other things, and I don't want to spoil too much, but it's a very comforting story to me, and this one has the depth that I like. This might also be because I've had vacation crushes and vacation friends, and the bond, it doesn't feel similar at all, but I can just imagine how this friendship that's so fundamentally a friendship blooms into more, and they see each other and they're each other's person beyond the sexual tension. But it does talk about like being 16 and seeing your friend and noticing they're becoming attractive to you and all those